Really interesting story out of the Washington Post. This is a report from Michigan. The Washington Post reported that Muslims and Christians are teaming up in Michigan to protest the creepy LGBT curricula in the schools. So the way the Washington Post reports it is that the Christians are the bad guys and the Muslims were just kind of duped and brought along for the ride. If you look at the videos, by the way, it looks like the Muslims here are actually leading the show, and Muslims are obviously very, very represented because of mass migration in Michigan and in Dearborn in particular. They show up to a Dearborn Public Schools meeting and they chant that they want to throw the bums out because these weirdos in the schools are trying to trans the kids and push the rainbow ideology on them. Take a listen.
Vote them out! 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 Vote them out!
Vote them out! Vote them out. Now, as far as I can tell, every single person in that room is a Muslim. I don't see anyone that looks particularly Christian there at all. But the Washington Post has to frame it. They can't frame it as the Muslims are the bad guys. It always has to be the Christians who are the bad guys, or the white people who are the bad guys, or the men who are the bad guys, or the straight people who are the bad guys. That's the way that their identity politics works. So they say the Christians are leading this movement against LGBT progress and openness and inclusion in the schools. And, okay, yeah, some of the Muslims went along with it. No, it's the Muslim. I'm sure Christians back this too. I'll speak as a Christian. I absolutely 100% support those guys who are in Michigan pushing back on the LGBT curriculum. But it's the Muslims saying, wait a second, we don't want this crap. We don't want you to tell our daughters that they're secretly boys or vice versa. Get this stuff out of the schools. And what makes the story so interesting to me is that this is clearly going to be an important political alliance moving forward. And it's a major shift. In the early 2000s, after 9/11, you did not exactly see the Christians and the Muslims teaming up in American politics. There was a great threat from radical Islam. The wars that we were fighting during that period were against radical Muslims in the Middle East. There were terror attacks by radical Muslims in the United States. And so you didn't see that kind of alliance. But now, in the year of our Lord 2022, the major threat to the United States does not seem to be coming from Al-Qaeda, which barely exists anymore, or ISIS, or the radical Muslims. That doesn't seem to be the big threat. If I asked you right now, what are you most worried about in terms of threats against you and your family, and specifically your kids? Are you more worried about some crazy Muslim terrorist somewhere in the world, or are you more worried about the drag queen who's showing up to your kid's kindergarten classroom? It's obviously going to be the latter. And because that's the threat, because the most immediate threat right now to our society is from the radical left right here at home, I think you're going to see more and more of this kind of an alliance. Religious and conservatives, Christians and Muslims and Jews and just normal people who are perhaps even somewhat vague or agnostic in their religion, but they prefer a kind of traditional moral order. We are all going to team up together because we have a common foe right now that threatens the very fabric of our society and all of the beliefs and traditions and virtues that we all hold so dear. Get ready for much more of many more Christian Muslim rallies against the creeps who are trying to trans your kids.
Mr. Knowles, how's my favorite host at the Daily Wire? Had a question for you regarding a dilemma I have. So I have a friend of mine who is a very big fan of my band, Purging Sin, and he is transgender. He basically dresses up in women's clothing. He's on hormones, but he still has his male appendages. Now, I value his friendship and the fact that he has been a huge fan of our band for the longest time and would really hate to break off this professional relationship as a result of difference of views. And to top it all off, he's very conservative, pro-Trump. So my question to you is, in this situation, how would I retain my friendship with this guy, but at the same time, too, express that I do not believe in what he believes in? Shout out to Davies and the Fourth Thursday Cigar Club.
Is that Slap My Bass? That might be Slap My Bass. That's a great Daily Wire member. Great Michael Knowles Show member. What would I do if I were in your shoes? I would remain friends with the guy if you can, and just view that friendship and view him as you would any other friend who has a mental illness. Because it obviously is a mental illness if you're a man and you think that you're a woman and you behave that way. I have plenty of friends and family members with mental illnesses. Especially, I grew up in New York. I think there's a higher proportion of mental illnesses in New York. Something about the city or something. But I would treat it like you have a friend or a family member who's bipolar, who has, I don't know, some kind of mood disorder, or someone who has schizophrenia, or even, has transgenderism. I'm trying to think if I still have friends who are transgender. I have had friends who are transgender, some of whom don't speak to me anymore because they're very upset that I won't affirm their delusions. But I've never broken up a friendship because someone has some weird sexual hang-up. Quite the opposite. I'm always happy to spend time. I've gotten along with Blair White, who's in the media, and had Blair on the show, and he and I got along just fine. I always get in trouble with a very small number of people on the right who, when they're trying to attack me, they'll point to a photo. I once took a photo with a transvestite at a big political convention, and I think they're very upset that I was nice to a transvestite guy. I thought, I have no reason not to be nice to a transvestite guy. I would never lie to him and tell him that he's really a woman. I would never say that the society should tolerate or encourage transvestitism or transgenderism. But I see no reason to be nice to somebody or to have a friendship with someone who's confused. I think what's required is a little bit of humility. As is often the case. What's required is just a little bit of humility and recognizing this is a fallen world, and so you speak the truth with love, and the truth as far as you can see it, and you recognize that you've got flaws too, and your friends tolerate you for all of your many flaws and problems and struggles, and so you should do the same to other people. You should not squish at all. You should not call him by his woman name or whatever, or call him she or something. But I wouldn't not be friends with a guy because he's mentally ill. That seems like the time you should most be friends with a guy. The rest of the show is continuing now. There are fake headlines that we need to work through today. Okay, this is Friday. On Friday, it's fake headline day. Davies picks out 5 headlines, 4 are real, 1 is fake. I had a perfect score. Now I don't. I got it wrong last week. I need you to help me in the comments section to pick out which one is the fake headline. You don't want to miss it. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us. See you over on the member block.